Hello, Mr Barton here. In this video I'm going to answer a question that I've been asked quite a few times by users since the scheme of work launched, and that is, can the scheme of work or diagnostic questions in general do anything for my students who are resitting the legacy GCSE specification? Because of course this scheme of work has been designed for the brand new GCSE maths specification that students are sitting for the first time in summer 2017. But what about those students resitting the legacy GCSE maths specification? Well, I'm going to show you two possible things that I would advise you to do, and indeed we're trying both of these out with our resitting students. So the first is to simply manually assign students quizzes that are perfectly suited to the legacy specification. Now to do that you've just got to find those quizzes. Now the easiest place to go is if you click top left here once you've signed in and go to questions. But once you get to the questions page, and apologies, my internet's running a little bit slow here, navigate straight to this collections tab, and here you'll see all my kind of hand-built curated content, and these are collections of top quality quizzes. Now if I was doing a resit class, the first place I'd probably look is GCSE Maths Takeaway, so I'll open that up, and the second place I'd probably look is one of the exam boards, and you might as well go for the one that your students sat in the previous summer. So if they sat the Edexcel legacy, you might as well use the Edexcel legacy, and so on. If I just open those tabs, you'll notice the GCSE Maths Takeaway. These are short 5-question quizzes that cover all the topics for the old specification, and they're organised in the old-fashioned grades, C and D, grade C and above, and so on. And you can just essentially manually build yourself a schema work out of these. So if you want to start it off with sequences, give sequences a click, and then just click assign to class, choose your date for sequences, then go back and do the same with equations and so on, and do it throughout the year. And it'll take you a while, but again, once you've set it up, that's you sorted. And I would assign those quizzes throughout the year so the students know every Monday there's going to be a new quiz on there or whatever. Likewise, feel free to use some of the new quizzes that have been created for the GCSE, because something like indices and standard form, that hasn't changed, so you'd be absolutely fine there. Things like integers and place value, that hasn't changed, so feel free to choose any of these quizzes and assign them in the same way. Okay, so that's one option. The second option though is you can actually build a scheme of work and get it automated, but you've just got to bear one thing in mind. So if we click to the scheme of work page, you'll see here that a user's got a blank scheme of work, and if we choose a scheme, we'll just click on the plus button, and again let's assume that students are going to resit the Edexcel higher. Now there's two things you need to bear in mind here. The first is that at the moment this is set up as a 2-year scheme, so we're going to need to convert that into a 1-year scheme, but I've done a video on this already and it's dead straightforward. But the second thing is perhaps more important. There are obviously going to be some questions and some quizzes that aren't going to be relevant to students sitting the legacy GCSE specification. For example, a question on iteration or exact values of trig functions, but also subtle things like transformations have changed slightly with invariants and all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to go down this route of automating it, you just need to be a little bit careful in your choice of quizzes, and sometimes perhaps say to the students, don't worry about question 7 or don't worry about question 4 and so on. You're just going to need to have had a look at those quizzes in advance. So if you want to create yourself a 1-year scheme for the legacy spec, you just need to click on edit, and as I say, I've done a video on how to create a 1-year scheme, so I'm not going to spend too long on this particular bit. Change the name of it to something like, well, let's go original, 1-year resit scheme of work. Again, it'd help if I could spell. And the technique that we're going to use is exactly the same as the technique we looked at when we built a 1-year scheme. We're going to get year 11 looking exactly how we want year 11 to look. Get all our quizzes in year 11. That's going to mean moving some from year 10, changing the order around and so on. And then essentially deleting year 10. And that's all there's going to be to it. Okay, so to do that, as I say, I've done a video on this already, but I'll just show you briefly what we need to do. Let's say, for example, we wanted to kickstart year 11 with fractions, and who wouldn't want to do that? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take fractions from year 10 and I'm going to move it to year 11. So you give it a click, then you click this drop down because it tells me at the moment it's in year 10 and I want to put it in year 11. Now when I click this, two things are going to happen. Firstly, fractions is going to disappear from year 10, and secondly, it's going to arrive in year 11 at the same place it was in year 10, so it's going to arrive in week 14. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a click. It may take a while on my computer. As I say, up north, the internet is a relatively new concept for us, so it's running a bit slow, but I promise it'll be quicker on yours. So if I just give this a click, and there you go. We can see it's disappeared from week 14. Let's cross our fingers and hope it's arrived down here. And there it is there in week 14. So we didn't want it in week 14. We wanted it at the start of the year. So we're just going to drag fractions and take it for a little ride to the start of the year and so on. And you just build it up like that. You move topics to the position you want them, getting year 11 looking exactly right. You're probably going to need to shorten down the amount of time that you spend on some topics if you've got a load to cram in, and you can just do that by dragging and then moving things along and so on. So you build year 11 up, get it exactly how you want it, and then you simply delete year 10. Now, only delete year 10 when you're absolutely sure that you've got it right and you're ready. And when you're happy, delete year 10, it'll disappear and you're simply left with year 11. And that is then ready to assign to your students. And you will then reap all the benefits of the new scheme of work, because all the quizzes will be automated and you won't need to do anything else. But as I say, that word of warning, just be careful you are not setting your students topics that they don't need to study for this GCSE. I guess the bonus as well is that you can leave out some of the more demanding topics and just focus on that 1 year, on the absolute core basic topics that are going to ensure they get that C or that B or that A or whatever. But as I say, please check the quizzes carefully because they're designed for the new specification. Okay, so once you've got that set up and once you've got that built, it's simply a case of assigning it. So my scheme of work is all ready. Again, it'll just take a second to load, and all I would do is I would click on that plus button, that tick, sorry, and assign it to whichever classes I wanted. Hope that was useful. Bye for now.